Lucasfilm is in the hot seat with Ahsoka. The studio has lost over $1 billion. That's right, $1 billion in the last 12 months. Because of that, it's no surprise that Kathleen Kennedy is completely silent when it comes to promoting this series. But that's just one of several strategic moves being made by the Walt Disney Company when it comes to trying to salvage and save Ahsoka. So much is riding on this, and none more so than the career of Dave Filoni. Filoni in the hot seat, and how is Disney going to handle it? That's what we're talking about right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another takedown of Star Wars, perhaps. No, we would never do such a thing. It's an explanation of entertainment. We are looking to keep you ahead of the culture curve, and a perhaps minor part of that culture curve this week is the forthcoming Ahsoka series on Disney+. Jonas J. Campbell is here to walk me through why it looks like Disney is actually throwing everything they can at protecting this series. And Jonas, welcome back to the channel.
Good to be here. It's an amazing thing how much a little thing like scheduling can change how your series is perceived and affect how well it can perform.
That's right, and it's going to be fascinating to watch to see if this strange strategy that Disney has, it's not just limited, of course, to this change in scheduling, but it's a big change in scheduling for sure, and it's also altered the programming for this week. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, it's a strange strategy that Lucasfilm is going with, perhaps instigated by Disney, perhaps influenced by the writer's strike, actor strike, etc., but I'm not so sure. Let's get right into it, though, folks. Here we're going to start off with The Verge, and we're on the verge of getting into the information we need to. Jay Peters, the author here, Disney Plus moves Ahsoka episodes into primetime on Tuesdays. Disney's next big Star Wars show will air on Disney Plus at 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. Now, let me go ahead and say that what this means is, by the way, we have a Tuesday celebration live stream here on this channel. It will be at 5 p.m. Eastern time. That was pre-planned. We are going to be celebrating the milestones of many of our channels that our friends run across YouTube. And we're also going to be revealing more information about That Park Place, the new YouTube channel, which will be fully integrated with the website, thatparkplace.com, and create a network of different channels coming together to bring you entertainment, news, and analysis. However, because Ahsoka has been moved to Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, folks, we've got a special treat for members. At 11 p.m. Eastern time, we will have a members-exclusive live stream right here on this channel where myself and Lauren Connors, we will review the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka immediately after having watched it. So not a live reaction, but immediately following it, we will give our review. We won't have time to sort of sit down and think it all through. It's just going to be, here's the take. So be watching for that. Ahsoka, Disney's next big Disney Plus Star Wars show, will now premiere on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Disney announced on Friday. So that was a rather quick change, Jonas. Means the first 2 episodes of the show will now be available this evening of Tuesday, August 22nd. Why do you think that was so shortly heralded?
Why did they change it quickly and suddenly without notice?
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously there is some basic level of notice. We've known about it for a grand total of 2 days now.
This is not the typical way things go at Disney, right? This should have been planned out and marketed, a big new primetime show. And instead, this is like a scramble. What's going on?
Right. Because most people aren't aware of when these things are coming out anyways. And they do have the flexibility. They can drop it whenever they want to drop it. Embargoes and such. They've already had all the people that wanted to review the first 2 episodes that got invited into Disneyland, the small number, if you can watch some of the content on this channel to realize how many people did not show up to review it. It seems like what they're doing here is they are trying for any bid they can get to have everyone talking about this show, that even if they've got people like maybe someone who is disfavorable to Star Wars right now, let's say a channel that you just know, put that channel in your head of the kind of person who would just absolutely rip this thing to shreds. They will at least be watching and tweeting about it over and over again, maybe even causing a show to trend on social media over the course of several hours here, because this is 2 hours of Ahsoka. And even those hate clicks, those hate search terms that are getting on the trending page, that will be, oh, you know what? Everyone's watching Ahsoka right now. I should also watch Ahsoka right now. They are trying so hard to make this show relevant, as opposed to the faulty strategy they've had in the past of letting it release in the dead of night while no one is awake, or only the people who are desperate for content to show on their channels to catch it as soon as possible. I don't want to.
So let's talk about that, Jonas. Why in the world this never made any sense to me. Why in the world did they decide on that release schedule in the first place for their shows?
It's beyond me. I think they thought that the age of normal television was over and that everyone would watch. Everyone would stay up late to watch episodes of The Mandalorian. Well, it turns out people were staying up till 3 a.m. in some cases. And then they would just spoil it for everyone else online. So, okay. As the shows have faded in popularity, I think releasing your shows in the middle of the night means that you are just destined to miss it from your own personal perspective.
I mean, that time frame was just terrible. It has always been terrible. It has always been stupid because you release at 3 a.m. Eastern time, you release at midnight Pacific time, and you're releasing at the beginning of the day in Europe. So the Europeans are going to work. The Americans are in bed. It is literally the worst time you could possibly release these kinds of shows. And I guess you could say, well, in East Asia, they're loving it. And it's like, well, yeah, except that they don't watch Star Wars. So, and your main show that you developed was The Mandalorian, which was, dependent on this release schedule. So all of it was just a bunch of bunk from the beginning.
Right. I'm trying to think. I think they moved it to Wednesdays around the release of Loki, which was early, but not one of the first series on Disney Plus. And I think that did better for them when the MCU was the hot thing and people were still looking forward to whatever the next thing was in the MCU. Okay. Yeah. We need to know, who is Kang? And the answer is he's a theater kid that, likes to dance on the top of his own desk.
Well, folks, we're being a little disingenuous. We do know exactly why they did this schedule. It's not any smarter, but they wanted to maximize every single hour they could based around the way that Nielsen tracks the ratings. That was the whole game, was to try to maximize so that they would look good. Well, that's not working. They don't show up on Nielsen basically outside of Bluey. But we'll continue on the article here. It says it's only a slight shift from Ahsoka's original premiere date of Wednesdays, but since Disney Plus shows typically come out in the middle of the night, genius, this new airtime might make episodes easier to watch the moment they debut. Might, yeah, possibly. Actually, it's a sure thing. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the change. I'm old and go to bed early. I'm not saying this, folks. You'll never hear me say that. So it's hard for me to stay up late to watch new episodes of shows right when they air. Since I live on the West Coast, I can now watch Ahsoka at the extremely reasonable time of 6 p.m. Pacific and still be in bed at a decent hour. It goes on to talk about that. So that is step one of this plan for Ahsoka to get the attention it needs and potentially save Dave Filoni. And I mean that because, Jonas, if this doesn't do well, this is Filoni's big moment. If it doesn't do well, this will sour the anticipation and expectations for his potential movie out there on the horizon. Let's take a look at step 2 of the strategy. Jermaine Lucier, this over on Gizmodo. The first reactions to Star Wars Ahsoka are here. The latest Disney Plus Star Wars series stars Rosario Dawson is out on August 23rd. It says, Star Wars fans have been waiting over 5 years for this. Oh, yes, we have.
Oh, my.
When Star Wars Rebels ended in March 2018, creator Dave Filoni teased a story where Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren would team up and go to find their friend, Jedi Ezra Bridger. Well, it took a while, and it's not the way we expected, but the story will finally continue in Star Wars Ahsoka, which debuts this week. Thursday night, that's talking about last Thursday, Disney held fan events across the United States, Disneyland, Hollywood, New York, Orlando, and San Francisco, where fans got a glimpse at the series' first 2 episodes and then released their reactions online. Now, let's talk about those locations real quick. So with Hollywood, they've got their apparatus in place there to do anything they want with these sorts of things. New York, the same. Orlando, they've got the parks. San Francisco, that's where Lucasfilm is located. And Disneyland, of course, everything's in place, right? So you've got the 2 theme parks. You've got the 2 locations that are typically used for, these kinds of events with venues that Disney already has. And then you've got San Fran location of Lucasfilm. All right.
Yep.
The easiest possible locations you could do. So it's not like they went out there and they're in Austin, Texas. They're not They're not in Minneapolis. They're in the places they already exist.
Right. High population centers and a high chance of catching a favorable audience.
Right. And they have exactly. And they have done their best to get this into the social consciousness, right? We didn't really see these kind of fan events before with some of these Star Wars shows, but they're doing it with Ahsoka. And let's see how this is going, because this is, again, step 2, get something tracking on social media. Jermaine Lucier says on X, I think Ahsoka has a lot of potential. You never want to hear that out of your first thought. As a Rebels fan, I felt a connection to it that was truly special. And yet it's hugely epic at sometimes and oddly flat at others.
Ooh.
Sabine is the standout through, and by episode 2, I was fully sucked in. It could go south, but I don't think it will. Interesting. Jazz Tanke says, just saw the first 2 episodes. That sounds like a Star Wars name. Just saw the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. Great score and loved all the visuals. This makes me want to revisit Clone Wars. And yes, Rosario Dawson is great. Looking forward to the rest of the series. Okay, good there. Eric Goldman says, a promising start for Ahsoka with many cool elements that expand the Star Wars universe and feel different from Mando. Episode 1 has some slow moments involving a MacGuffin. But episode 2 really gels. Sabine is a standout. I think those meeting her for the first time will really dig her. Now, Jonas, one of the interesting things about these takes, of course, we know that the people who go see this, they are easily, by far, the most apt to give you positive reviews.
Oh, yeah.
You have just wined and dined them, given them glowing Ahsoka headdress pieces they can keep forever. As long as the batteries live on, so will the glow of Ahsoka's headband thing.
Right. It's very difficult to give a bad review to a guy that's sitting next to you.
Exactly.
There. Maybe a guy with a cowboy hat looking at you and saying, "Hey, do you want to come back maybe next week and watch episode 3?"
Yeah, I'd love to have you back. It's like being invited into somebody's house and they serve you food and it's okay, and then they want you to write a review on Yelp for their barbecue. Oh,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Can you really get on there and be like, the ribs were terrible. I have had better food at a Waffle House. I mean, you can't do that to them. You can't do it. So
now that one of those reviews saying it fell flat in some places, I'm reminded of the episode. I think it was like an hour-long episode where it was the Operation Paperclip episode, where they essentially said, what does a boring desk job look like in the Star Wars universe? Now, there was about, I want to say, 20 minutes of that hour-long episode, maybe probably less than that, actually, that was interesting. And then there's this entire half portion where we're with some character that's not charming, not engaging, doing boring work. The intention is for it to look like boring work. And he gets betrayed by a person that we have not spent much time with, that is maybe not that engaging. So when I hear other parts fell flat, just know, Lucasfilm, that I'm thinking of episodes where you have the unappetizing supposedly story-driven parts of the episode that no one wants to watch, that are sandwiched between two things that are interesting. That's not going to work if you keep using that awful strategy and you want people to live tweet about your show. If they live tweet that they are bored, you have failed in this strategy.
Okay, so let's dive into that, though, Jonas, because many out there have thought that their strategy here of releasing 2 episodes on the debut was part of an effort to, again, drive the Nielsen ratings. So because the Nielsen ratings are based on minutes watched. So you've got to get those minutes watched up. So how do you do that? You release 2 episodes. I'm starting to wonder, because I have seen this now beyond just what we're looking at in these social media responses, but from people I've talked to, I'm hearing that the first episode is a little rough and that the second episode is superior. So I wonder if Disney knows that, and they elected to go with 2 episodes to try to make sure they don't run into another Secret Invasion situation where people look at it and go, I'm out. I am just out. This is terrible. Maybe they'll give a second chance to an episode that's right there waiting to be viewed. What do you think?
I think you're right. The next step, of course, that they have not taken is going ahead and putting that first episode on Hulu, because as we've seen with Avatar on Disney Plus and HBO Max, when the Nielsen's report those figures, they report collectively for the entire series as opposed to breaking out which platform something is on. So all of a sudden you'll have this metric that you don't know if it did fantastic on Max or fantastic on Disney Plus we're all going to guess it's probably Max, because Max has a more engaged user base right now. I I don't think that this is going to do well for them to have the first half be boring, unless you get a lot of those social media people who are like, no, I'm here for the long haul. I am here to give you all the hate clicks. Please give me your money by paying attention to me ragging on this show, which they're inclined to do at this point.
Well, so I'm also I don't think that they would put it on Hulu immediately for the debut, because they don't want to confuse the audience about where the rest of the episodes will be, and I don't think they're going to do a combined launch for the entire show. They don't want the first season, if there's a second season, but they don't want the entire show to be on 2 platforms.
Well, not the entire show, of course, but I wonder how much of the show they could put there. And it's not unthinkable. They have done things where they'll put the first episode of a series on YouTube, for instance, and say, go watch the rest over here.
Well, I'm actually in agreement with you, Jonas. As you said that, I thought it was a clever thought, because I wouldn't be shocked if the ratings are poor for this. And as much as is riding on it, I mean, what is left? There's nothing left. Disney and Lucasfilm, they have got to be in utter panic for the people who will actually be staying after the transition happens over there at that studio. But they've got to be in a panic, because when The Mandalorian falls, and we know it fell because they lost hundreds of thousands of subscribers in the same quarter that it released. When The Mandalorian falls, you are in deep trouble. And they've got this Ahsoka show now, of course, that there's a movie writing on it, and the guy who is writing this show and directing this show is the director of that movie. I mean, there's so much at stake. It would not shock me if the ratings are poor, perhaps. Now, I don't know what they'll be, but if the ratings are poor, this is what won't shock me. I would not be shocked if at the end of the run, they throw it all on Hulu and do a combined finale. That wouldn't shock me, because they'd be doing anything they possibly can to get the finale numbers up, to make that be a selling point and try to keep people interested in Star Wars. But I do think that they're in a complete and utter scramble to try to save this. They're in a worse position than they anticipated. I think Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny has thrown them for a loop. I think the High Republic has failed. Everything has failed. So, Jonas, let's talk about their third strategy. And based on what I just said, well, it makes a lot of sense. Silence from Lucasfilm. Here's what we've got. We have a blurb from Kathleen Kennedy that was probably written by, a publicist inside a press release. And we've got the same thing from Dave Filoni. And then there appears now to be a video circulating some of the access media sites out there that was made probably 6 months ago, where Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau open Ahsoka toys. And that is the marketing beyond these special events. It's crickets from Lucasfilm, and I actually think it's helpful. I think that it is in Disney's best interest that Kathleen Kennedy be completely disassociated from this in every way possible, which is something to say when you're talking about the head of a studio. You would never, ever, ever, should I say ever again? Ever. You would never see a Marvel movie come out and Kevin Feige not give a statement to a reporter or an interview or something. It's crazy.
You would rather have the question. The closest that Marvel Studios had was Victoria Alonso, who started to become the figurehead there. And the more that she was associated with something, the more she spoke about something, the more detrimental the effect on the audience. Correlated. I'm not saying she caused it, but I will say the more she spoke, it was correlated to a negative fan response.
Yes, and I think with Kathleen Kennedy, it's fair to say that if she speaks at all about this series, there is no positive that can possibly come from it. And I also think that when you've arrived at a point where your studio lead, when they cannot even come out and give a statement on a show, lest they damage it because they're so unpopular, I see no way that they can continue forward doing anything with this. But Jonas, we don't know how this is going to perform. We don't know if this will break the mold and be a good show. And I am leaving that option on the table. Lauren, Connor, and I will review this on Tuesday evening. Immediately after it comes out, we'll have the review for public access the very next morning. So we'll be as fair as we can be. Let's talk about the positives and the negatives real quick before we wrap up. Jonas, if this fails, well, go ahead. Your
Let me ask you. I know that Lauren has probably seen Andor because I think he's seen everything Star Wars. Have you seen Andor?
No, I did not watch Andor.
Okay.
I did not. What would you say about this one, about Andor? I have watched almost all of the Disney Plus content as part of my job of reviewing things, and I needed a Star Wars sabbatical.
I'm hearing that it is the general social media response appears to be, I hear it's good, not it's good, but I hear it's good.
Well, so, I hear it's decent. So how's that?
Yeah, I think Andor has better footing than that. But please go on. As I just
that's a great point to bring up, because Jonas, what if this is another Andor? Everyone heard it's pretty decent. What's the worst case here? What happens if this fails? And then tell us what happens if it actually wins back some fans.
Well, I think it has a higher chance because Clone Wars has an invested audience and Rebels has an invested audience. And that's probably why an Ahsoka show would be greenlit of all things. It ties the most into the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy because you have, it looks like Anakin Skywalker is going to be in it. Hayden Christensen is returning. Those are the kind of things that inspire all the fan editors to get excited and maybe, oh man, there's a whole secondary audience here of people that are excited for maybe taking bits and pieces of this and turning into something good or better or whatever. That's all subjective. I think that everyone wants to see what they do with Ahsoka. I think they've done a fairly decent job of not overexposing her in live action.
Hey, Jonas, counterpoint to that. Counterpoint to that I think it's worth interrupting you for just a brief moment. Do you think there's the possibility that people are tired of seeing what they've done with these characters now? That we've seen it with Luke, we've seen it with Indy. We could keep going on and on about the characters who you're like, actually, after that Boba Fett thing, I don't need to step back into the world. Just leave them alone, man. Just leave them alone.
Well, I mean, if you play your Star Wars bingo here, if you have Ahsoka Tano and Ahsoka Tano and a Skywalker and a Mandalorian of some kind, other than Sabine Wren, sitting on Tatooine, then seriously, guys, there are more than like 3 planets in the Star Wars universe. Please.
Chances Luke shows up?
I don't know. I think it would be, yes, I think there is some possibility that there will be Luke somewhere in this. Bare minimum a mention. But yes, I do think there's some chance that there will be Luke Skywalker involvement.
Maybe there's a Han Solo affair, Jonas. Maybe this is actually what broke up the relationship between Han and Leia.
No, I'm still thinking with all this feminine energy they've got and the trends at Lucasfilm, that I think the odds that somebody comes out of something in the middle of all this, all these things that would be inappropriate if it was a male mentor and a female mentee, that would be completely inappropriate. They're like, oh no, it's brave, it's beautiful, but that's a whole other aspect.
Well, I'm thinking more of a She-Hulk situation, but anyway, we digress. And we don't know what's going to happen with this.
Dude became Darth Vader. They're rife to go chew him out. I mean, come on.
But we will, we will sing the praises of this show if it's good, and I mean that. We try our very best to say when things are good and when they're bad. And by the way, folks, there's a video coming out this afternoon on this channel where we actually, I know you're not going to believe this, we praise Disney for something they've done. Disney has done something that's actually very good. Now, that's not to say the company is very good, and that's not to say that many of you out there are going to give them their money for it. But there's actually something very good, and we just flat out praise it. So check out the video coming out this afternoon and see what bewildering thing might have enchanted me and my guest host for the afternoon video. But Jonas, this has been fascinating. We're going to be watching it. Of course, Lucasfilm has lost $1 billion over the last 12 months.
At least.
We've done a video on it, and I would say that it doesn't get hotter than this hot seat that Dave Filoni and Lucasfilm, that they're in. I don't think much is riding for Kathleen Kennedy. I think that sunset is coming. But for Dave Filoni, this is a big, big deal for his career, and it's a big deal for that segment and the future of Star Wars as it may go forward. Jonas, thanks for being here today, and let us know, where can we find you on this great, big, beautiful web?
Well, you can find me on Thursdays on the Pro Show, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. there's a strong possibility that I'll also be here Tuesday, 5 to 7 p.m. for our big celebration live stream, because the Rising Tide lifts all boats. And we don't forget about the Rising Tide like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did in the first season. We love all the people that we have on this channel. And I mean that. Love all the people.
Well, there's no greater joy than watching your friends succeed. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Things seem to be going well here, and we don't take that for granted, and we appreciate all the audience. I'm also on Twitter, probably a little too much, or X, if you are one of those newfangled kids who doesn't want to call it Twitter. I also have a channel where I go through everything woke in children's content, and there's a lot to go over there. So please do go over there and check out my videos. Thanks for having me on, bro.
And folks, Jonas is also about to be the director of That Park Place, YouTube channel. You're not going to want to miss it. And going to be a ton of great content, lots of hard journalism coming out of that account. We're very excited to bring it to you as we continue to explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve. Well, folks, the conversation here has come to a close, but the commentary begins. Let us know, do you care even one iota about Ahsoka? Drop a comment down below and tell us, will you give it a chance? Will you watch it for even a moment? Will you wait for us to review it, or are you just done? We respect all of your opinions. Let us know down below. And folks, if you like this conversation, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. When you click it, you stick it to the algorithms, it's the notification bell. And wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Oh.
What are you doing?
Well, you see, I wanted to get some inside scoops on Disney and their different corporations, if you know what I mean. So I figured by looking into this fistbowl and sucking it randomly with my own energy that I pay for, you paid for, I could do the whole experience where you can be a master and spy on your targets.
You're an idiot. If you want to get the inside scoop on Disney, or even other media organizations, you should check out thatparkplace.com and subscribe to WDW Pro's YouTube channel. That'd be way easier, more accurate, and, less dumb.
Are you saying I won't get accurate information this way?
No, you can't.
Who'd have thunk?